Alrighty, and it is 5:36 here where Nevada comes to talk. Daybreak Nevada rolls on. If you think I've been busy today, and you know I have here because we've been shooting from the hip, so to speak, getting all of this stuff done live. And we have published, I think we published it. Did this, has this been emailed out to people yet? Do you know? And I'm talking, by the way, to White Pine County District Attorney Mike Wheable, who has been with us before here. I don't know if that's been emailed out yet or not, but
the executive order is starting to be posted on our various county websites, and I think the sheriff is currently in the process of posting a list of essential and non-essential businesses that are subject to this order that takes effect tonight at midnight.
Right, and I think, I'm trying to remember, I think we posted that from the governor's office. We got that already, I believe. If not, that'll be going up shortly.
There's a updated emergency regulation of the Department of Public Safety, Division of Emergency Management, that further clarifies that list. It's a little more detailed.
Yeah, and we've got that, and we'll be sending that up to our Facebook pages shortly, facebook.com/KELY1230 for our local folks. We'll also be posting it to Facebook.com/Nevada Talk Network as soon as I get all of that converted from PDF to JPEG so that it can be read. But we do what we can. I know, and I want you to clarify again. You know, the governor has come up with this order. The DPS has made their situation clear. Clarify why the county went ahead with this today. In affirming Dr. Byun's orders and putting those in place and putting those penalties in place, knowing this is coming down.
Correct. One of the things, at the time that the county passed Dr. Byun's or adopted his order as regulation, and most importantly what the county did this afternoon is identified and declared the COVID-19 as a public nuisance, and any act in furtherance of spreading that in our community or any act contrary to Dr. Byun's orders, a public nuisance. That means that there's a lot more statutory authority for Dr. Byun to abate the nuisance and the sheriff's office and my office to enforce it. Those specifics aren't in the governor's executive order. The governor's order is more tailored towards closing business. And so they cover two different types of activities in our community. Also, there's separation of powers. The state it's making its regulations, and the state has different punishments, civil penalties, loss of business licensing, that kind of thing for violating their orders, whereas locally, having Dr. Byun's order in place allows us to continue to advance this policy of social distancing for the next 30 days and gives us some tools locally to deal with that specifically. Also, this is what I said during the meeting, the governor could lift his restriction, even though he says it expires on April 16th, the closure of these non-essential businesses. He could lift that restriction at any time, but by having the county commission's order in place, with Dr. Byun able to enforce that through the sheriff's office, that remains in place because that will still probably be the best policy for the next 4 weeks.
Public safety and public health both.
Correct.
It's
just more tools in the tool belt.
We have not seen anything here yet in Ely, but we do have 2 and possibly 3 cases in Elko as of this time. We are still waiting on this 3rd case, but we have had the 2nd case, and we had John Ellison talking about that a little earlier here. I want to, this has not been an easy time trying to balance essential liberties and public safety. And, there are some times when we have to, and it's sad, we have to regulate common sense. And that's what a lot of this is, common sense.
It is, and I think that can be seen by some of the jokes and memes going around the internet about how we're just now learning how to wash our hands as a society.
It's insane. It's insane. I want to ask you one other thing, and this is not related to this. But as you may or may not be aware of, the folks up in Elko today arrested a young man in connection with the murder up there. And I don't have all that at hand. But I'm a little confused about the difference between filing charges of because they filed open murder, and I don't know what that is. And since you're here and since you're a district attorney, you can give me an idea of, because I remember murder in the first degree, murder in the second degree, open murder. This is something I have not heard. Can you give me an idea what this is as a from a professional standpoint? You can explain it to a layman, which is me.
Sure, I'll do my best. I wish I had my statute book in front of me so I can actually make some examples. But here, it's kind of an older theory of charging murder that is pretty unique to Nevada. I don't know any other Western states that might have that charge. I think there's still a few that use it. But when you just as you said, there's murder in the first degree, and that's statutorily defined. Murder in the second degree, also defined. You have the felony murder rule, which is any murder that occurs during the commission of a felony. And then this open murder theory. And it's a very flexible way for prosecutors to charge a murder as we're sifting through the evidence still, and allows the jury to find the first degree or the second degree. It leaves it, I believe that's my interpretation, it leaves it open for either first or second degree. Is
this the principle of lesser included offenses?
Sort of. That's the spirit of it, because there's always lesser included offenses.
Yeah.
So even if I charge only first degree murder, theoretically the jury can get instruction to put second degree in it as well. Open murder, it essentially is the first degree murder theory.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go back to my office, I'll get my statute, and I'll come back here next week and we can talk about this a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Because I love this stuff. I haven't looked at the open murder statute in a couple of years since the last issue we had in our community.
Because this is, this is going to be a big case as to the way this went down, and we've kind of followed this in Elko. Because, like I said, we're statewide here, and we have listeners in Battle Mountain and other places, and we want to make sure all this is covered. And you are my go-to guy when it comes to Nevada legal stuff. District Attorney Mike Wheable, spending some time with us. I know you've had a long day.
It's been a long week, and it's been a long week for all Nevadans.
And especially those of us here who try to bring the news as it's breaking. And that's our responsibility, and it always has been.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've already put the public service announcement out, but just as an extra reminder, Governor Sisolak's executive order goes in effect midnight for all non-essential businesses. That means in-service dining and bars must close. If you can continue your restaurant service by curbside pickup, the governor's going to allow that for now.
Or delivery.
That's correct.
Or delivery. So we want to make sure that takes place. And if you can find me a loaf of bread, it would be nice.
I gotta bring out those old recipes.
Oh my gosh, I don't even have a bread machine anymore.
Oh, your hands are your bread machine.
Oh Lord. District Attorney Mike Wheable spending some time with us here. Anything you want to pass along to people, either in an advisory capacity or a suggestive capacity, or whatever message you want to impart to the people? Because I know you don't want to see them in court.
Oh, no one wants. That's not what this is about. The last thing we need to be doing is further punishing our members of our community as we're all trying to learn a new social behavior. I mean, it's extremely difficult. Church gatherings to distribute food, and people haven't seen each other for a week, and they want to hug each other. And I mean, it's just not justice to give them a citation and or worse. So right now, I know our sheriff's office is informing our local businesses. They want to give warnings. We just are in an education mode right now because this is so new. Of course, after the warning, if there's some willful and wanton behavior that is endangering others or in violation of the governor's order, then other steps will be taken, and unfortunately. So this is what I do want to share. I've had some time to think about it this week as we've been trying to roll out these orders and understand the governor's initiatives and now his executive order. But the better we do as a community and the better we do as a state in practicing this social distancing concept, in obeying and following the executive order of the governor, the sooner we can have our lives put back to normal. The sooner we can get ahead of the spread of this, and the better supplies we can get from the government and other private manufacturers into our local hospitals so we don't overwhelm them, the sooner we can get back to normal. So that's why I'm encouraging compliance, and it takes a lot of patience. I know a lot of people are very frustrated with this, but by all indicia so far, this is going to be a serious issue that we're going to be telling our grandkids about.
I mean, this is a difficult 3 weeks we've got ahead of us. This is going to be challenging, but it is for the greater good. I mean, I mentioned this before, and I mention this constantly. Everybody has said, oh, there's nothing in rural Nevada. Well, now we've got 2 cases in Elko, maybe 3, and who knows how many more are out there, because those 3 people didn't show signs immediately. They were out there spreading. This is contagious prior to symptoms showing.
Yeah, and the other part that is really spreading this, unfortunately, because it is a novel disease, a novel virus, there was not an abundance of testing kits, abundance of methods to test for this available. So the protocol across the state and even the nation, but let's just focus locally, is when someone appears or contacts the hospitals, appears symptomatic, they're sent home and told to self-quarantine. Does not even reported to the state. They aren't offered a test because they have so few tests, and they have no tests at our hospital. They have a procedure they have to follow to send it out.
So few kits.
So few means to test for this. They have to jealously guard it for the sickest of patients. So they know how to critically care for those patients who need intubation and breathing and therapy and other things like that. So they have to save those very few kits for those patients that were just the standard practice right now is to look, this is going to be a terrible sickness you're going to have, like the flu. Go home, don't talk to anyone, stay in your house for 7 days or whatever the quarantine recommendation is from the hospital. That these cases aren't being reported, and we're not counting it as a confirmed case. And I'm not saying that it's like wildfire in our community, but it's possible that there's a lot more individuals who are positive for COVID-19 that we don't, like you said, we don't know about. And so to say that, we're isolated, there hasn't been a test here, we're fine, why are we doing this? That's exactly why we're following these mandates, so we can protect ourselves, and our loved ones. Obviously, it affects the those senior citizens a little bit worse than the rest of the population, but one study out of Washington shows 20% of those hospitalized were between the ages of, I think, 29 and 45. So, I mean, it does affect the younger generation as well.
It can affect anybody. And this point in time, folks, we need to be careful, because if it doesn't get to you and you come in contact with a senior, you might be putting their life at risk. And do you want to have that on your conscience? That's the biggest issue right now. And as was said, and our owner said this, and I said this previously, we will never know whether overreaction was too much. But if we underreact, we will definitely know whether or not it wasn't enough.
Exactly, and that's what I've been asking our public to be patient and understanding, because no matter how this shakes out, government's going to be to blame. I mean, whether we overreact and no cases ever really materialize, and that means we were successful and we put a stop to it and it worked, it's going to look like we overreacted and the government's to blame. If we do too little too late and we have an overwhelming response of the hospital and they're not able to care for everyone there, and there's a triage and people start passing away in our community, the government's to blame. So let's be patient. Let's take care of each other, and let's not depend on the government to take care of us. Let's take some personal responsibility for ourselves, our families, and our neighbors. If you have, I said this earlier, if you have a stash of toilet paper that'll last you 6 months, consider checking with your neighbors through social media or phone, and making sure that everyone around you has enough, because there's plenty of supplies, plenty of food in our community, plenty of gasoline for us to get through this. The only thing that can make that worse is our own fear, on our own belief that we are dependent on the government, which is not the case.
Fear is our enemy right now, and that's the biggest thing. And impatience is going to hurt us just as bad. Folks, we need to settle down, understand that this is for the good of everybody in our community, particularly the seniors and those who are not in the best of health. We have to take care of ourselves, take care of our communities, and if we do not take care of ourselves, share and do what we have to do, we are doing everybody an injustice, including every senior in this community. I mean, I don't know if I can say anything more than that. I think it's, we have to take care of one another. We have to take care of our people. And I don't care where you are. This applies in your community as well. I know that if we get bound up here in Ely, and we have a propensity, sometimes if things get too serious, we lifelike people out. Well, here's the problem. If it's serious here, how can we lifelike people out? Because those other facilities are going to be just as jammed up as we are here.
Exactly. It's because of this vulnerability that we have, this specific characteristic of our isolated community, that we need to be more vigilant in our social distancing, unfortunately, because of that exact thing. Our hospital staff already recognizes that by the time we need to offer critical care, the hospitals that we usually transfer patients to may be telling us there's no room at the inn. And we'll have to take care of them here locally, and we have very limited resources.
That's the big issue right now. Mike Wheable, the White Pine County District Attorney, and I said this earlier, and I think it bears repeating, that once this is all over with, we'll be going to the bars and having ourselves a good party. All the shows are going to be full. All the, we will all be, the restaurants will have a 2-hour wait, and the kids will be happy to be back in school, and we will, we'll have houses toilet papered from here to there, and we will hug one another and embrace one another and just be happy that we made it through.
I couldn't agree with you more. The silver lining that I see, and this is just my personal opinion, take it for what it's worth, whoever's listening. This is an excellent opportunity to reconnect with your family, spend time with your children, your loved ones. Dust off those things under your bed called books. Start telling stories, and maybe dial the clock back a little bit and pick up some of those things we've lost as a society since the advent of social media.
There you go. And don't you wonder, the people that are home, they have dogs that are looking at them going, why are you here? Oh, my gosh. District Attorney Mike Wheable, thanks for spending some time with us. 5:55, where Nevada comes to talk. We will roll on here and take you back to Wayne Allen Route in progress.